Now, the scripture is very consistent with this message about where not to place our security and instead to place our security and our confidence in Him. Just to give a few of those examples, here they are. You don't even have to write them down. I'm sure you'll remember these. The house of cards. You've heard that phrase. It's an idiom. And the idiom house of cards means this: a very unstable structure, teetering and on the brink of collapse. And when the Jewish people were called to look in the mirror, they were called to reflect upon the fact that their nation was a house of cards. That on the outside, at this time in history, on the outside, they had economic success. They had financial security. They had good borders. They had a strong military. That is what defined Israel at this time. And yet here comes Amos the prophet to say, you are about to enter a season of national mourning and lamentation and weeping and sorrow, because what you see on the outside is not reflective of what God sees on the inside. New Hope, do not look at our nation the way that the world does. Because the way that our world looks at the nation oftentimes is like everything's fine, everything's gonna be okay. Look at the nation from the perspective of God and see the corrosion, see the corruption, and see the things that are going on within, because from God's perspective, it just may be a house of cards that is ready to fall down, that is very unstable, teetering and tottering. Have you seen a toddler who's just learning to walk? And they teeter and they topple and they're ready to stumble, and it is a picture. And this is why we're called to strengthen what remains, to take a look at what we can strengthen within our lives and within our homes and for the next generation, and give focused effort to strengthen what remains so that we place our security and our confidence in what truly matters. Now, the scripture is very consistent with this message about where not to place our security and instead to place our security and our confidence in Him. Just to give a few of those examples, here they are. You don't even have to write them down. I'm sure you'll remember these. But wealth. 1 Timothy, command those who are rich in this age not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put your hope where? In God. Health, Isaiah chapter 40, all flesh is like grass and like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flower what? Fades, but the word of the Lord stands forever. How about power? The great echo of Psalm 20, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we, who's we? The people of God, we trust in the name of the Lord our God. It's where do you put your power? Where do you put your confidence in? Also, people. Do you place your confidence in people? Psalm chapter 146, do not put your trust in princes. Do not put your trust in human beings. Blessed is he whose help is the God of Jacob. How about parents? David says in Psalm 27, my father and my mother have forsaken me. Listen, New Hope, but the Lord will take me in. Is your security even in parents or their absence or their rejection of you? David says, put your hope in God. How about politicians? Daniel chapter 2. Daniel falls to his knees after that great vision is delivered to him, and he says he changes times and seasons. He removes kings and what? Sets up kings. Our hope is not in politicians. Our hope is in the God of the universe, New Hope. And how about nations? Job chapter 12, he makes nations rise and he makes nations fall. Where do you place your security? In a nation that teeters with uncertainty, be very wise where you place your security. New Hope, the question would be this, is how does the Lord indeed see our nation? Because he's sounding the alarm to Israel that says what you see on the outside does not match what God sees on the inside. New Hope, when I see our nation, I see a nation that is teetering with uncertainty like a house of cards. And if it were up to me, my vantage point, how I believe that the Lord's heart sees us, I believe that the Lord sees our nation the same way. I would draw this parallel to how he saw the church in Revelation chapter 3, verse 1. And in Revelation chapter 3, verse 1, that church had a reputation for something, but the Lord sees something far different. Here's what the Lord sees. He says, I know your works. He's talking to a church. I know your works. You have the what? You have a reputation. On the outside, this is what you're known for. You have a reputation to be alive, but you are dead. That's Amos 5:16 and 17. You're dead. Wake up. Strengthen what remains and what is about to die. New hope. That's my action step. Give focused attention to strengthen what remains. Do you have children? Strengthen them. Do you have grandchildren? Strengthen them. Do you have a capacity to love God more? Strengthen your heart. Give focused aim. Give focused intention to what God has called you to. That's the path of life. That's earlier this week. I was power washing my deck. It had been about 2 years of that kind of that greenish. You know what I'm talking about? Just where your deck, it just kind of turns that greenish and it's a little dark, but you kind of ignore it because it's just kind of day after day after day. It just kind of, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. But listen, after doing half my deck, I stood back. I'm like, wow. And how did it? Listen, it is that focused effort of a spray that gets rid of the mold and the green. It's focused. And New Hope, that's what it looks like to strengthen what remains. It is giving focused effort. And when you do that, God comes along, rewarding and blessing. Strengthen what remains.